A guten Tag. Hey, how's it going, guys? It has been a minute since I've gotten a video out to you. If I look tired, that's because I am. We've made it out of finals week, finally into the summertime. Don't have classes to worry about for a minute, so I'm really excited to start getting some content out to you guys for the foreseeable future. If you're new around here, hey, how's it going? I'm DM Denver. I wear the elf hat, and I'm here to hopefully make your tabletop dice rolling games just a smidge better, and that's hopefully what we're going to do today. Now, this is a video all about villains for your tabletop games, D&D, Pathfinder, whatever it might be, in addition to some movies that I've seen recently that I think really showcase some rockstar villains. Before we get into the meat of the video, I want to make a little announcement right here up at the front, which is that I've launched a Ko-fi. I'm not sponsored or anything. It's a service that I found and saw a couple other smaller creators using. The link to my page is in the description of this video. It's a donation service, so it's like a $5 donation. You can do a monthly donation, a one-time donation. I really don't care either way. I've been really excited about content creation. It can just be difficult to fit into my schedule, especially with work and stuff like that. And obviously I'm still a really new channel, so my sights aren't set on much, but anything really does help. You guys all know how I do my question, answer, response in the comments at the end of each one of my videos. To kind of, honor anyone who does have the time or ability or interest to donate. If you donate, you can leave a message on your donation, and if your message contains an answer to the video question, I'll pick from that pool of responses over just the general comments. If there aren't any donations, no worries, we'll head back to the comments, and maybe sometimes I'll do a donation answer and a comment answer just to, keep things fair and help out people who maybe don't, have the opportunity to donate. So, with that, yeah, I'm virtual panhandling right now. It's pretty cool. If you would have told me like a year ago, I would have a Dungeons and Dragons YouTube channel, and I'd wear a silly little elf hat, and I would panhandle on the internet. Anyway, here's funny video time. So I'll preface this video by saying the inspiration came from a comment response to last video's question to be answered in this video. The approach for the response was about how villains are characters. This was made pretty apparent by two movies I had seen recently. The first is obviously Guardians of the Galaxy 3, that's why the thumbnail looks the way it does.
Gotta ride that algorithm, baby.
And the second was Inglourious Basterds. Rented that from a local DVD store and watched that for the first time. Great stuff. The villain in that's super compelling, and I wanted to take a second to talk about it because this is my YouTube channel and that's what we do here. I'll start with what I think we can take away from Inglourious Basterds as prospective tabletoppers when it comes to the villain in the movie. I'm not gonna lie to you, at the time of recording this video, I don't exactly remember the villain's name. I'm not sure how often it's said. In the movie, which for context, if you haven't seen it, is set during World War II, so the villains of the movie are obviously Nazis. The central villain that you're dealing with, his title is the Jew Hunter. Hopefully this video doesn't get flagged, it's just what's in the movie. But so anyway, we got Mr. Nazi Man. And the fact that it's Nazis, I think, is a good starting point for this video. These sound bites out of context are about to be crazy. To my point, pre-assumptions and the foundations of the campaign that your villains exist are going to have massive impact on how your player characters interact with the villain, regardless of any of the choices you give them to make. Those choices will be limited by what the campaign is sort of predicated on. As an example, in the movie, obviously we as an audience see Nazis. I see a swastika or anything comparable, that tells me villain. That's villain. I'm gonna go into any situation seeing that with the assumption that that's a villainous, evil kind of character. Safe bet, I'd say. Take those preconceptions, be mindful of them, and either lean into them or against them. Imagine you have this character, we'll just keep using the Nazi analogy, who's evil, vile, wicked, and then they're kind to you, and funny, maybe charming or charismatic. In Inglourious Basterds, we obviously know with the backdrop of World War II, there are atrocities happening, and yet we never explicitly see that side of it. In fact, a lot of the most gruesome occurrences in the movie that we witness are by the protagonists, the Inglourious Basterds. A lot of butchering and violence and stuff that we explicitly see from them. The Nazis in the movie are often at these lavish parties or these restaurants. Their conversations that they're having are casual. it's weird, and I think it can make your villains more intimidating. For a tabletop example, say you have a campaign where dragons are super evil. Anybody who's rocking with some dragon iconography, you know they're bad news. And then the player characters are fighting in the woods against some foe that proves just a little too powerful for them, and some soldiers wearing maybe dragon scale armor or something comparable ride up and offer them assistance. Context is difficult and uneasy because the player characters in the campaign would be operating under their pre-assumptions of how these villains operate, and yet the current situation is contrary to those assumptions. Maybe the interest of the villains in your campaign isn't centrally affecting the party. We have a party that just wants to delve dungeons and explore and drink in taverns and collect better equipment and stuff like that, and the villains in your campaign simply just so basically want to overthrow the king and be in charge. And then when they're in charge, the exact same stuff that the party wants to do can happen. Does your party find investment? Why do they go against what the villains are doing? And why is what the villains are doing wrong? So obviously, though, there's some ways that you can lean against the pre-assumptions that are being offered by your campaign or your narrative. If you want to lean into them too, that can be helpful. Nothing lets the party know better that a villain is villainous than some dark armor, some scorched villages, and some evil magic. Take Sauron, for example. Just looks evil. Just straight up. I see him walking around. Evil guy. Could tell. Speaks in whispers. Flamey magic, big eye, tower thing. Yeah, evil. We get it. It's convenient though. Really paints the picture and conveys what you need to convey, which is that this is the villain of the story. And if you're really not the sort of storyteller who wants to get into the why or have any like broader conversation about the little nuances of good and evil, that kind of stuff, super helpful. Don't be scared of it. Transitioning to the second movie I think we can learn from, Guardians 3. Firstly, just brief tangent. I miss when Marvel movies were just consistently really good. There was a heyday. Maybe I was younger. I don't know, but this was a good one. This was one of the better ones in a long time. Anyway, the villain of the movie, the High Evolutionary. I think the kind of fast facts to take away from Guardians of the Galaxy 3 when it comes to the villain is having the villain be cemented as an aspect of the narrative. The Guardians, as a group of protagonists, are encountering a period of change, analogous to evolution. And the central internal struggle that many of them are facing is this fear of obsoleteness or losing their community. This would be done in the name of potential growth, but is that risk worth it? And at the beginning of the movie, many of them are saying no, choosing for a period of stagnation to stay together and keep things as they are. High Evolutionary takes change, progress, and improvement to a perverse extreme in a way that is like a mirror to what the Guardians are fearful of. So in that way, I think that that's super important. Whatever themes and tones that you want to explore over the course of your campaign, have your villain be tied to those. And then players maybe show up with a character that leans in those directions as well, or interacts with them in a way that's not off-putting. You know, you don't want to have some really dark and gritty sword and sorcery campaign and you show up with Gyps the Bard. just like a 17-year-old human kid ready to play his bongos into oblivion. I don't know. Maybe that's fun. Just something to keep in mind. Now I want Gyps the Bard fan art and lore. Next video, we'll do a character study on Gyps. What's his name? Gyps. Anyway, then you take this intimate connection to what the Guardians are fearing, what they're struggling through, what they aspire to, too. And you link that tied specifically to the fact that the High Evolutionary has an intertwined history with Rocket. You got a great villain set up. A member of the group has already been wronged by this villain, and the villain is rearing their head yet again to attempt to afflict the same treatment, but now in the context where it's a parallel to what the Guardians are going through. It's this wonderfully tied interaction between the protagonist and the antagonist in the movie. So Dungeon Masters, keep in mind what your party wants. Maybe make a villain that represents the outmost extremes of what they want and force them to question why their motives are the way they are. Say you have a party who's entirely gold driven. They'll do anything for some coin, and the bigger the check, the more likely they are to risk themselves and others to do it. Standard story. Make your villain much the same, but much more capable and much more wealthy. And make the central vice of them greed. Maybe they team up with the party at some point for a smaller arc, and the party's trying to help out some village folk or farmers, more simple living types of NPCs that you can put into your campaign, and this villain wants to extort everyone they come across for as much gold and silver as they can. When it comes time to divvy up loot, they make elaborate and intense and arrogant arguments for why they should get more than the party. It's a great way to make the party in your games maybe change what their motivations are and grow. Very similar to Guardians 3, I think. What I like too about Guardians 3 in that vein is that the Guardians inevitably have to double down despite being shown a potential route for this growth and change. They're scared as a group of growing because they don't want to lose their connections in themselves. They kind of like the way things had been for a minute. The High Evolutionary is nothing but change and efficiency and discarding obsolete things in the name of growth and perfection. Forces the Guardians to say, no, change is still fine, but the way you're doing it is wrong. And what you're doing to our friend, wrong. Very compelling, very cool. I think anyway, and it's my YouTube channel, so that's going to be the de facto opinion discussed here. Sorry, commenter. Oh, finally, I think a tip we could take away from both movies, show your villains early on. Party needs to meet the villain quickly, or at least hear about the villain quickly, or be introduced to them in some way. You don't want your big bad showing up once during the final fight. I don't think that does anybody any favors. It takes away opportunities for personal investment from the party. It gives you as a dungeon master less opportunity to showcase what makes this villain cool and what makes them tick, what makes them a character in the narrative that you're telling, and not just some, hyped up fight and a stack of hit points that's going to be done with on a random Thursday night. I guess I should preface too, this is largely advice discussed in Matt Coville's video about villains. I'll put it up on the screen for you right now if you want to go check it out. But showing your villains early, I think, is great advice, or at least if you don't want to do that, you have some reservations about that, showing the effects of your villain. Maybe the campaign starts a couple years after a king has been assassinated and replaced by some new lord, and some of the very early missions that the party must go on are trying to navigate the new norms in this corrupt government, bypassing town's guards that can be easily bribed. Maybe they take advantage of that corruption to make their day easier, or maybe they're trying to establish justice, whatever the situation may be. From the beginning, they are already working in the wake of the villain who has gotten this first step ahead of them. So yeah, those are the movies that I saw, what I think we can take away. Well, with that kind of little random advice right here at the end, Dungeon Masters, don't have your villains monologue all the time, and players, let the villains monologue sometimes. Seems like every time the Dungeon Master wants to have some accented, sort of speech to convey some aspect of the villain's villainy, players want to just get the free bow and arrow shot off, or
I can't fireball, so he shuts up.
that's okay some of the time, but it's so much cooler if the villain monologues, and then the paladin in your group monologues, and then you fight. I think that's cooler. With that, I'm gonna go over my favorite response from last video, and then ask this video's question. So thanks for sticking around for the Q&A portion. You're my most favorite viewer. I appreciate everyone who does watch the video, but making it this far as always. You get my thumbs up for that one. And little guys say hi to the people still watching.
Hello, you have done well.
Anyway, the response I want to cover comes from Grump Frog on my last video. Grump Frog, if you subscribed, thanks for subscribing. If not, thanks for please leaving a comment. Last video was all about characters, and Grump Frog is a DM, and so they left their response about a villain in the campaign, which I loved. It kind of inspired some of this video too, because the villains are characters. Any characterization that the party gets the opportunity to have, I think you as Dungeon Master should award your villains, maybe to a slightly lesser extent, but enough so that way the party gets a feel for who they are too. You don't want to fight just generic evil overlord 37, you want to fight a villain worthy of you as a hero. So Grump Frog actually went through, there was a section of the video, check it out by the way if you haven't seen it yet, where I asked some character questions to help kind of jog some inspiration and help players flesh out their characters a little bit more, and Grump Frog did it for his villain. So I want to cover this response. I think this is really sick to get an idea of what this villain is. Let's just get into it. So when I asked what the character's favorite fruit is, he said that the villain loved sourdough bread as a small child. Even as a teenager, he baked a lot, but sourdough was the last thing he and his lost brother made together. When I asked about young love, Grumpfrog said that the villain has never experienced young love. His childhood ended sort of unexpectedly at an early age. His older brother was taken away from home because his brother was also a sorcerer. In the setting I'm in, arcane magic is heavily regulated, in some cases straight up illegal in some parts of the world. When I asked what the character's favorite season is, this villain's favorite season is spring. He's obsessed with reaching his full potential, and from his perspective, spring's the time for nature to do something similar. I think that's awesome, Grumpfrog. Thank you so much for leaving a reply to that video. Really easy to make this video off the back of that. Our villains are characters in the narrative. They serve a function. An undeveloped villain is an undeveloped aspect of the narrative that can have some serious implications down the line for how rewarding or satisfying victory ends up feeling. It's gotta be challenging, cunning, and familiar to the party to really raise the stakes for that final fight and get that resounding cheer when the party finally drops into 0 hit points. That's the villain video. I hope there was something in this you could take away. My question for this week is, what's the coolest thing a villain has ever done in a campaign that you've played in? Pretty straight to the point. Excited to read the comments on this video. If you want to be featured in one of my videos on the question and answer section, definitely be sure to leave a comment for this video's question in the comment section. Like I said, I did set up a coffee. Everything goes a really long way. So like I said, I'll be giving some priority to any donation comments that have a response attached to them that I can kind of showcase. So if that's your sort of thing, or you just want to support the channel, definitely means a lot. And with that, we know what time it is. We got to end this video. And I don't know how to end a video. So we're going to use this bad boy to roll a stealth check. Thanks for watching, guys. Wow. I'm rolling at a +2, but that is a natural one. So I will do the walk of shame all the way over to the camera and leave this section in. Ugh. Honestly, I feel like the natural one is when I should have, when I fell that one time. I think it was last video. It wasn't a 1, but it was close. Anyway, bye.